Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes mini review. Today, we're going to be taking a look at modeling putties. So for this actually review was born from my request for people to make a suggestion on a modeling putty to use to fill and sculpt on my GW building project. And a lot of people recommended Mille Putt. Somebody recommended Procreate, which I'd never even heard of before. And of course we have the standard GreenStuff here. And then I have one that I had used a long time ago as an inexpensive, what I could get my hands on. It's called Quickwood. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at all of these for different properties and then see if you can find one of these that will work best for you. So I'm going to come in real close up on these and take a look at them in detail. So what I've done is I have tried to set up a few different tests for each of the materials, and then also did a little research online about them so that you could have some ideas about what is available in addition to whatever it is that I'm showing you. So what I've done is I've done three, well, wait a minute, I've done more than three. I've done a patch where I have tried to carve it. So this side was me pressing in and trying to sort of create little gullies, or one of these, I don't know, rows. Like plow field, really. There's a name for it. I'll come up with it later. Here I did a dragging test. Here I did a pushing test. Here I decided to do a texture retention test. What did I use for the texture? Oh, I know. I used a sanding belt. Whoop, here we go. I can get one. So what I did is I took a Dremel sanding band and I rolled it across to see how it accepted that texture. I'll put that away. Then I wanted to see how the material would retain its shape when you sculpted it into an upright structure. So let's say you wanted to make an upright tentacle on a model or something like that. How well does it stand up over time? So I tried that with two different thicknesses, tried to keep them all the same length. And then I did one where I embedded a magnet into the putty because, at least for me, sometimes I've used them as magnet holders in otherwise softer materials. So, this will pull right out of foam on its own, but if you make a plug out of a modeling putty and then embed the magnet into that, it will hold much better. So I thought we'd try a pull test on these to see if I can pull the magnet out of it anyway, to see which ones hold the magnet the best. Here's a quick overview. We're going to go through them one at a time. We'll start with, let's start with Quickwood, since it's probably the one you're most unfamiliar with and the most sort of oddball, if you will. Quickwood, here we go. We'll do it like this, if you want to read it. Quickwood is actually a wood filling putty. You can pick it up at a hardware store. I did check, they still sell it. I've had this for quite a while, and it's not terribly cheap. Oh, I will go over, I'll go over the cost in a little bit here. So I probably shouldn't talk about that because I can't remember what I wrote down. I can't see it from this angle. But in any case, it's a two-part, very similar to when you get a tube of GreenStuff. So it's a two-part, slice it off, mix it up. And let's take a look at those properties real quick. Here we go. So taking a look, it really holds sculpting fairly well. When I'm pulling, it's not... it sort of tears a little bit, but you can see here it's not really piling up from the pull. Some of these putties do that more than others. It takes texture fairly well, but you'll notice right here how it's lifted up. When it was soft and I rolled it over, it actually started to pull up off of the substrate. This is foam core. Down below here. So, you know, that's kind of one thing to consider. It may not bond when it's wet as strong as some of the other materials. It is not able to stand up on its own. When you make a small tube, it will sort of slowly collapse over time. And let's see how it does with the pull test. So what I'm going to do is just try to pull it out with a big stack of magnets. I have no idea if this is going to work. Well, all right. Seems like it's holding pretty well there. And then I thought, as a final test, I'd make a rod, if you will. You know, try to keep them all the same, right? This is not engineering 101 here. But also, just to see, how does it withstand, whoa, flexing. This is quite, well, it's fragile in that it shears really easily. Well, I shouldn't say it's a shear. What is it? That's a, well, it's a bending force. There's probably a better name for that. So anyway, it snaps. It's quite fragile, but you know, you can hear that it got a very hard finish. Oh, I didn't even think about a scratch test. So you can scratch it, but it's not something you can really carve into after it has been set up. And I didn't even think about this. We're gonna take a look at everything we can about this. And that has got a pretty good bond to that surface now. There's no way that's coming up easily, probably without tearing the paper. So that's Quickwood. Quick comment on it before we leave it. It was definitely the softest material once it was mixed. Very, very soft. And it has quite a strong odor, actually. It's got a weird chemical smell, and when you're mixing it, that smell stays on your fingers. It's not something that's easy to get off, and I find it kind of, I don't want to call it nauseating, but it's definitely an unpleasant smell, at least for me. So that's something to consider with Quickwood. Let's move over to the tried and true favorite, GreenStuff. Now, this GreenStuff I purchased in a ribbon form, and for the tests, I pressed in, right, and then did a little pull. Now, if you notice, when I did the push here, right, it's got a little pile up on the end here. When I pulled, it's not tearing, it's more like piling up behind, and you can see the rounded edges here. It really holds that rounded shape, although, to be fair, so did the Quickwood. But hopefully you can see that contrast. Boy, that's dark. All right, well, I'll play with it in post-editing, see if I can help that out. People describe this, I saw this somewhere, as, what did they say? Sculpting with rubber. It's got a very rubbery consistency. If you haven't used GreenStuff before, it's a very sort of stiff, gummy texture to it once you've mixed it. Gummy viscosity, if you will. So anyway, that's something to consider. Takes the detail. In fact, I'm going to say this straight up. All of them took the detail about equally well. This is fairly... This might have taken the texture the least, actually, of the three, but that's getting very picky. It really is very close in all of these different modeling putties. But you will see here, again, like the Quickwood, this is actually laid down because it doesn't hold up its own weight, but it's laid down even more than the Quickwood, just practically almost flattened out on its own. And we'll do the magnet test. We'll take a quick peek at that. Oh, if it would help if I have the right polarity. There we go. All right, well, there we go. And what did I say? Oh, scratch test. Let's see that. Well, actually, I would say that is softer than the Quickwood. And for ability to bond to a surface, yeah, that's tearing the paper. I think. Well, let's get it off of there and we'll see. Oh yeah. So stronger than the paper. So similar bonding to the Quickwood. Couple comments on the GreenStuff. There are 3 varieties of GreenStuff. There is blue stuff and then there's gray stuff, I think. And they have different levels of hardness once they cure. So that's something that you have as an option with this that you don't have, say, with Quickwood. It is a tough, softer to mix than Procreate, which we're going to see in a minute. But this is the second toughest material to mix. It takes a little bit of finger strength and a little bit of time to get it evenly blended. It also has the problem with being in the ribbon form, that it has a contact between the 2 parts, and this creates an area where it has already begun to cure. So technically you're supposed to, cut that out when you go to start mixing it. And of course that's loss of material. This is a place where it will start to degrade over time as it sort of migrates into a wider and wider cure area. You can slow that down, I believe, by putting it in the fridge or the freezer. Some people do that. But you can purchase GreenStuff in 2 individual rolls so that they're not in contact with each other and you can avoid that problem. But typically for small amounts, you're going to be buying it in a ribbon form. And I bought, the smallest amount possible because I just wanted it for the test. Oh, almost forgot. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Well, that's quite a bond there. And let's take a look at the bend test here. Ooh. And this is one of the things that I've noticed about GreenStuff in the past when I've worked with it, is that it really retains quite a bit of flexibility. Look at that. It won't even crack. And in fact, it retains that memory, so that it has a lot of give in that sort of in a way. How would you want to describe that? It's sort of like a safety way, right? Like if you dropped a piece that was like this, right, it's not going to break on you, and it's pretty much going to go back to its original shape. So that's a look at GreenStuff. Let's take a look at Procreate. Now, Procreate was a brand new material for me. I am not familiar with Procreate. It was marketed as, well, in fact, here we go. Wait a minute. All right. So as I mentioned with GreenStuff, right, you can get it in two rolls, and here you can get the 2 rolls of Procreate. And one of the interesting things about Procreate, before we take a look at it, is they include a chart, and they're indicating here that you can alter the proportions of the material and get different levels of hardness, different levels of working time, and then they have some comments on how that would be useful in terms of sculpting for miniatures. This material has been designed, or at least is marketed, exclusively for sculpting miniatures, and it's got some properties that really, I think, make it a very good choice for that. Now, one of the things I should mention is that GreenStuff can also be altered in a similar way. You can alter the proportion of yellow and blue to get different levels of hardness and working time, but there are no instructions included with GreenStuff on how to go about that. So I thought that was an interesting, what's the word I'm looking for? Instruction manual that they have included with the putty. Now, Procreate does not come in any other varieties, but of course you've got the mixing rates to change its properties, so you don't really need maybe more varieties than the one that they include. One of the things to take a look at the sort of press fit here, I found most of these materials, at least the first 3 here that I've shown you, have a very similar ability to hold, this kind of a pressing in with, and it produces a bit of a rounded edge. So those all seem the same. But here you'll notice when I did the drag in the Procreate that I got a little bit of tearing of the material, right? It started what's what I'm looking for here. Boy, I'm a loss for words in this video. But you get a grainy texture, how about that, along the edges. And you can see here, instead of piling as a roll the way GreenStuff does, it's really got a little bit of a berm that's kind of, well, you can see right there that's easily scraped off, for instance. let's see here. Holds texture, same way. Pretty much everybody's about the same here. But you'll notice a big difference here. Now, I didn't talk about the larger upright because all of them were holding this thickness upright on their own. I don't know if the Quickwood, well, why didn't I do this on the other two? Not sure. I think when I saw the performance of the smaller one, I thought that was sufficient. So you'll notice, though, that the Procreate held its shape. This was the original shape I made quite well over time, and so it's got a much stiffer property once it is mixed and sculpted. Holds its weight well. Here is the magnet. I have a feeling it's going to hold that magnet just fine. Oh, polarity. Yeah. All right. So I think they're all going to do fine. Well, we'll see when we get to the Mille Putt. And let's do a little scratching here. Let's see. I would say it's a little bit harder than the GreenStuff. And that's kind of what I might expect. In fact, wait a minute, let's do this here. Yeah, I think you can hear that difference. A little bit more plasticky, a little bit more rigid. Of course, I don't think this is going to come off of this. No way. That is solid. One of the things, though, that I noticed right away when I started mixing the Procreate is that it is a bear to mix. I really had to take some real finger strength and some time to get this evenly blended. Very, very stiff right out of the tube. So it's you know, that sort of belies its future properties in that it's a rigid material and doesn't have the sort of oh, almost forgot the last test, the deformation that GreenStuff has. And we'll take a little bend here and see. Oh. I haven't done any of these tests, so we're all learning together on this. Well, all right. So it shares GreenStuff's ability to hold that from breaking, and has quite a bit of memory and returns back to its original shape. So that's Procreate. Let's keep moving along here. We'll run out of time. Of course, there is no time limit, but I'm trying to keep these short. So last we have the Mille Putt, and the Mille Putt, again, pretty similar here, but it does not quite as smooth a roll coming over. It's a softer material. It's one of the softer ones out of these that we've looked at. We're looking at them together. And it's also the most prone to shearing when you're pulling through it, right? We're getting a lot of this grain along the edges. You can see how it's piled up. It's strong enough that it doesn't fracture off really easily, but you know, you can see right away that it is not a smooth, rubbery pull the way it is with GreenStuff. Holds the texture pretty much the same as I mentioned. Here's an interesting thing. It's got the ability to stand on its own somewhere in between GreenStuff and Procreate. So it's somewhere in the middle in terms of its hardness. Let's take a look at the magnet real quick here. All right. Well, that seems pretty solid there. Not terribly surprised by that. Let's do the little bend test. Oh, well, there you go. So this is a fragile material. It doesn't have the same plasticky properties as Procreate and GreenStuff, but I would say, this is of course my own personal observation and opinion, that it is much stronger. Well, let's try, wait a minute. I wouldn't say much, but it is stronger than the Quickwood. Couple quick comments on the Mille Putt. Mille Putt has 5 varieties of it. It is available in a variety of colors, and each of them have different hardnesses. So that is something to be aware of, in that it has, you know, straight out of the tube, if you will, the most kinds of varieties that you might want to be able to select from. And here's a final comment on this. I'm not going to show you this property, but when you wet this material, like for instance, you'll do that with Procreate, or you'll do that with GreenStuff, where you wet your tools so that they don't stick to it. The Mille Putt actually sort of forms a muddy surface. It kind of looks like it's dissolving, and that gives it some unique properties in terms of how you can push it around and smooth areas. It definitely performs very differently than the GreenStuff or the Procreate in that regard. But it doesn't affect its curing, which is something that surprised me. I was worried when I first started to use it, but it does say on the back of the box, well, there we go, will set underwater. And in fact, it does set up once it dries, and it doesn't actually produce a sort of, loose surface where it like was wet and it didn't bond to the underlying area. It actually comes out just fine, at least from my experience to this point. And wait, we'll do it. Well, yeah, all right, we'll do it here. I don't know. We'll put the hardness. Let's see here. It almost feels, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I'm having trouble determining some of the differences in the scratchability. I would say this is softer than the Procreate and probably maybe on par with the GreenStuff. That's going to be my best guess on that. So, before we wrap this up, I wanted to talk to you about what you can get for your $1 out of these materials. Now, you'll notice here I got a star. This is for Epoxy Sculpt. I did not purchase any Epoxy Sculpt. I was kind of in for a little as it was. But Epoxy Sculpt, just as a reference, it's another sculpting material. And it was about $10 for 4 ounces online. You can buy it in larger tubs, though, than any of these. That was kind of interesting. And so what I've done is I've indicated the retail price. This does not include shipping, and of course there's some varieties depending on where you buy it. The amount that you are purchasing, frequently you get a better deal if you buy a larger amount, so keep that in mind. And then we can take a look at its cost per ounce. So just starting at the top real quick, Mille Putt, you get about 4 ounces for $10, about $2.50 per ounce. Procreate, $13 for a little over 3 ounces. That's coming in at $4 an ounce. GreenStuff, $18 for 4.5 ounces. We're getting about $4 an ounce. Quickwood, actually, look at that, $4.50 per ounce. And so this is really maybe your quick fix if you need something like right now, and you can go down to the hardware store and buy it. But its properties are the weakest of the batch, and it's the most expensive. So, woodworkers, take heart. Use some Mille Putt instead. Why would you do Quickwood? Except maybe it takes stain better than the others. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that too much, but this gives you a rundown. You're not really looking at wide price ranges differences, but except for the Mille Putt, where you really are getting a much better value and very decent performance, at least in my opinion, but not specifically designed for some of the applications that the others are. Procreate, really made for sculpting miniatures. And I think if you are a miniature sculptor, you're going to find that that's really a nice material to work with. I would prefer it, even though I don't sculpt miniatures, because GreenStuff's got such a rubbery texture. It's really weird to work with. You have to get used to it. Anyway, that's the wrap up there. Hopefully you found some of that interesting and useful. And we'll get out of here. So hopefully you learned something about these materials from that little overview. I've had the most experience with the Mille Putt now, and well, probably a little more with GreenStuff over the past. But the Procreate, brand new material to me. And of course, I did not review Epoxy Sculpt. Somebody had mentioned that in the comments on a couple videos back. So if that's a material you're interested in researching, you might see if maybe there's a YouTube video out there talking about it. I did not look. Maybe I should have. If you know something about it and you think it's really important for other people to notice it, put that in a comment down below. I try to tell people, skim the comments. They're a resource just as much as the video is of itself, because so many people will put down ideas, things that they've learned with the materials, ideas about how to use them, you know, whatever. So it's always a good idea to take a look and skim over those, and maybe somebody's posted a little more information that I did not present. And I just want to thank you all for joining me. I do appreciate it, and I just want to welcome all my new subscribers. I'm always flattered that people are continuing to join the channel, so thank you very much for that. And I also want to extend a big thank you to everybody in the community who you know, keep sending me tips, ideas to try out, links to things I hadn't seen before, materials. I can't believe the amount of things that people take the time out to send me, and it's really helping me to always become a better terrain artist. And I like to be able, hopefully be able to bring some of that information to you, the Procreate being a good example. So thank you to the person who mentioned that. But anyway, it means a lot to me. I do appreciate it, and I'm always amazed, actually, with how much information comes my way, and it's really valuable to me, so thank you. So hopefully you will stay tuned to the channel, keep your eye out, because you know I will be back soon with another TerranScapes video.